Welcome to Creator's Journey with the Halfling and the Spaceman. We love talking to creators about their creative journeys, and we're happy to have with us J Kenton Pierce. His short stories and novellas have been featured in various anthologies of different genres, and his first solo book, basically, A Kiss for Damocles, which is the first book in his Kiss for the Long Night. Did I get that right? I'm sorry.
Tales from the Long Nights of the Universe. A Kiss from Damocles is this particular series with Shy.
Okay. Thank you for that distinction there. I'm already off to a rough start, so you have to forgive me, but, uh, but we really do appreciate you taking the time. Welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me. As I'm a nerd, I look forward to leaking about all the things I like to do and all my stories and nerd stuff.
Uh-huh. Very good. Well, then you're in the right business. Uh, well, so let's get started. Just tell us a little bit about your background and how you made the decision and when you made the decision to actually start writing.
I was a kid who was that kid who always had his nose stuck in a book on the playground, always daydreaming. The swing set was either an X-wing or a Colonial Viper, and just daydreaming nerdy kid. Got into D&D when it came out. It was the advanced edition, and followed along through with just a mess of different tabletop RPGs because I love the whole storytelling, the role playing games. Um, that evolved into the online RPGs, the whole Skyrim, Oblivion, and eventually MMOs when the online role playing games came out. I ended up being one of those guys who spent more time creating characters than actually playing the game. City of Heroes, I must have 6 or 7 pages of characters
Mhm.
because I'd get a concept and I'd make them and I'd write their little bio. That game folded and I moved over to Star Trek Online because I'm also a Trekkie nerd.
Hmm.
Same thing, page after page after bio, or page after page of different various characters, all with their little stories. And a fleet I was in that was the TOS veterans um, did a forum challenge saying, hey, instead of that little 300 letter character bio square on your character sheet in the game, fill it out here on the forum. Give us a page or two. And after about 10,000 words, I realized, hey, I really like this storytelling thing. And realized that's what I really liked. The games were fun, but they were just a means of storytelling. And with
Mhm.
writing, I don't have to worry about people being able to log in. I don't have to worry about finding a healer for a group. And they don't eat my Doritos and drink my Mountain Dew. So, and that's how I got into writing. Jim Butcher's live journal entries on genre writing were kind of the peek under the hood that made a fuse pop. So I said, wait, I think I can do this.
Mhm.
And then bumble along for about 10 years of makey learning, looking up every YouTube video, Brandon Sanderson's lectures, a lot of stuff by Rod Serling. He gave the guy's a gold mine when it comes to storytelling. J. Michael Straczynski. I was actually established as a short story writer when I discovered the Writer Dojo, which I stumbled on through friends in Baines Bar. And Writer Dojo is where I found Raconteur Press. Raconteur. I don't know how you say it. Uh, Law Dog's Posse. That is Writer Dojo is a tremendous resource for people learning about writing or just even established pros. There's always food for thought. And a group that came out of that called the Alpha Mercs. Great place to go for critiques and good solid feedback, which is a pearl of great price. I'm rambling. I told you I'd leak.
That's okay. That's okay. Uh, that's okay. Uh, Spaceman?
Pierce, what were your earliest fan loves? Can you tell us a little bit about the things that you love that drew you into this great world? You mentioned gaming. What were some of the other things?
Excuse me, I've got to okay get the list out here. When I was a kid, I mean, it was Star Trek, the old series on the old fashioned aerial that you had to hold the antenna just right. It was in
Mhm.
syndication. Watching Star Trek, the original series, with my mom. Stuff like Buck Rogers and Star Wars as they came out. Um, Reading Andre Norton classic Heinlein, like "Have Spacesuit Will Travel."
Mhm.
One of our favorites.
Yep.
His juveniles I really, really loved. And James H. Schmitz, who gets nowhere near enough credit. The Witches of Caris is something I read every 6 months or so. And then the follow up books that were put out by Bain. Um, Getting a little bit more recent, by which I mean a couple decades ago, Babylon 5. Um, Big lived in story verse where everything didn't rotate around it wasn't the crew saving the day in every episode determining the outcome of all important events. You had a big universe moving around them,
Hmm.
and things would happen off camera that 3 or 4 episodes later would suddenly be a big deal. And that gave it a sense of realism. And as I mentioned before, it felt like a big lived in universe. And that really caught my attention.
Well, what about, things like, cartoons or comic books? Um,
Oh, I'm an X Men fan from way back.
yeah.
X Men, Cap, some oddball independents like Alien Legion. Uh, Masamune Shiro's Appleseed was another one that really caught my attention. Kind of a cyberpunk. I'm not sure I'd call it dystopian. Some people would. Um, that was another one that really that I when I could find copies at my local comic store.
Mhm. Well, you mentioned that you were the kid that always had your nose in a book. You know, so with these other fandoms that you were into, obviously you had gotten into, into the science fiction and fantasy, you know, probably kind of a younger age. Did when you were growing up, did the other kids kinda looked at you funny and thought you were the
Oh
weird
yeah, I
kid?
was a nerd. I was getting picked last for every darn thing. And there was a few other nerds that sixth, seventh grade in that where we'd play D&D together, stuff like that. So there was a little clique of gamers through high school at least.
Well, did 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 you have some friends that at least hung out with you and kinda maybe shared some of that?
Oh yeah, I mean we would game together. We would all watch the horror movies together, sci-fi flicks when they came out. So it was there was a little a small group of us. It was a small town
Mhm.
in northern Pennsylvania, so there wasn't a lot to there was a small population base to work with.
As far as now with your writing, do you get a lot of support from family and friends?
Yeah, my family is really really supportive. My dad hates sci-fi. He likes Louis L'Amour, but he reads my stuff anyway because his boyfriend wrote it. My mom, she's a nerd too, so we were watching. She's just delighted, and my sisters too. They enjoy the sci-fi and they critique and read for me. And I've managed to bumble along and put together a great group of friends who have been very supportive of the writing, and they're all generally at some level of the writing or fandom community
Mhm.
for the most part. So that's I'm lucky in that sense.
Okay, very good.
Pierce, you had mentioned Dungeons and Dragons and Star Trek, so specific interest. So, how do these interests drive your writing?
Well, Dungeons and Dragons, it was basically the storytelling. It was Tolkien with dice because again, that was another influence is Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit. and Terry Brooks when the Sword of Shannara came out. So it was basically more stories because can only can only read so many. It's like, okay, I've read everything on the shelves at Walden Book now. I've read everything in the library. Okay, we're going to make a story. So the gaming was almost but not quite scratching an itch for storytelling that I didn't know I had. I do know that it was, and this is kind of a symptom that I should have spotted earlier. But in gaming, when running a game, I would always get frustrated when the players didn't do what they were supposed to do because I had a story to tell. And a good dungeon master, a good game master, it's our story. But in the back of my mind, it was my story, and that makes me a better writer than a game master. I fully admit my flaw. My Not that my characters cooperate with me; they do their own thing anyway. I set up clever traps and plots for them, and complications, and they kind of walk over, and they giggle and point, and walk around them and go herring off to get into more trouble than I could have come up with. It's
Characters do seem to do what they want to do, whether it's your book or your RPG
My
session.
characters are smarter than me, and yeah, as I think it's payback for all the times I was grumbling to myself about the players doing something that I didn't have in mind for them to do, or taking things in the wrong direction. So there might be something karmic, and now my main characters are kind of pushy and stiff necked and inventive.
Well, it's funny that you mentioned that it made you a better writer than a GM. We have been watching this YouTube series called How to Be a Great Game Master
Yeah,
or How to
how to
Be a
be
Great GM. Anyway, in one of the more recent episodes, he talks about that very fact that if you find yourself frustrated because the players aren't doing what you want them to do and what you've planned out for them to do, then you need to be writing. You don't need to be running a game. You need to be writing.
I recognize the flaw in
Yeah.
myself in that sense.
But I think it's safe to say that there are some GMs out there that don't recognize that, and they'll try to shoehorn their,
I've played under ones that were even worse than I am in that sense.
yeah.
And then, but in the good GMs, they're just like, okay, we're all here to have fun. I don't. I've got some ideas here, but we're just going to go where the story goes, and we're going to build it together. And that's the best gaming, I admit, which is why I'm a bad gamer.
Yeah.
Why I play solo when I play MMOs.
There you go. There you go. Uh, well, in your first book, that just came out in June. Congratulations, by the way. Um, so you've got that out now. Is this is this leading into the next book? Are you working on that one already?
Oh, it's a big. I got a heap of them.
Oh,
It's all one story universe. Every short story in the anthologies is either a prequel, like a historic quote or event that just kind of spun off and wouldn't leave me alone until I wrote it out as a story.
okay.
A few were scenes that just made a narrative lump that I had to saw off and then suture and set up as a short story. But it's one big universe, and Shy's stories, A Kiss for Damocles, is the core of the work. And her first series is going to be 4 books. First one's out now. The second one I've got done, just waiting for the structural editor to get back to me. That'll probably come out in June. And then there are 2 more books after that. And that's this story arc. She'll have another story arc later.
Mhm.
Um, but at the same time, I have a parallel series in the same setting from the point of view of a militia captain who Shy gives migraines to.
Oh,
It's a parallel and independent story series. You don't have to read them both. It's like you can read Captain America and The Punisher, and oh, every now and then they bump into each other and there's friction, but they're independent.
right, right.
That came about oddly when I was working on Shy's first book. The setting of Greenline Town felt flimsy to me. There just felt like there was no depth. And to rinse my mind out, a bit of a palate cleanser, I decided to write the scene where Shai meets Captain Aziz, Rafati Aziz is her name, from Rafati's point of view, just to reset my brain. And I wrote the scene out and I'm like, oh, that's amusing. She thinks of Shai as a venomous little rodent instead of an adorable little scamp. Um, and with good reason. Then I thought to myself, well, why don't I take this back to the beginning of her day? Start Ravati out having a wonderful morning. Everything is going well, then I'm just going to ruin her day. And then that turned into a series, The Warlord of Greenline Town. Um, so these are going to be published leapfrog. Shai's first book, Ravati's first book. Shai's next book, Ravati's next book. Because they're complementary.
Uh-huh.
They're independent, but they will enrich each other. If someone reads both, if someone reads only one, they're going to have a great time. If they read both, they're going to be going, oh, oh my, I didn't know that about this character. Ooh, wait for it. Ravati's book, The Warlord of Greenline Town, is scheduled for January. So we've got two series running parallel, plus occasionally I'll throw a novella in.
Uh-huh.
In fact, we just released one today, the 19th, Back Alley Angels and Badlands Devils. That's two short stories I've got that together come up to 25, 26K. And we
Uh-huh.
decided to put them in there because one is a great teaser for Ravati's upcoming book. Takes place in the setting of Greenline Town. It's kind of a gritty gutter noir type of thing. And you see a lot about the world that Shai didn't see because she was too busy running and shooting and having knife fights with people to really see how things operate in Greenline Town. The other half of this double is a prequel set in what they call the Pride Lands. It's about 600 years before Shai's time. Um, takes place around the same time as some of the shorts in the anthologies, Pride and Peppers, which is in Space Cowboys 3, and before the events of Bravado and Beans, which is in, was it the Coffee Adventures, Quest for the Perfect Cup of Joe. So for Shai, it's ancient history, but these are events that build the world she lives in. They're right after the war and the long night that devastated Shai's region. And it's basically space cowboys and robbers, except in this story, El Banquero del Diablo, it's space cowboys and robbers until the John Carpenter music starts playing and Sam Neill smiles in the shadows.
Ah.
It's a definite it's a long way from the other story, the Green Line Gambit, which is a straight up noir tale. The flawed but well meaning mercenary with a code versus the ill tempered happy brawler of a cowboy who finds himself dealing with capital E evil.
Mm.
And that one has definite horror elements. Oh, big time. Because sometimes horror does seep into the Tales from the Long Night. It's a big universe and it's got some scary corners.
Huh. Well, Mr. Spaceman, I think you got the next question.
Here's we one of the things that we try to do is we try to help people getting started on their creative endeavors and encourage people. And because of that, we ask creators about their creative process. So, could you walk us through your process of going from an idea to a finished book?
I generally, I'm character driven, so fleshing out the characters as I go along has been key. Um, I'm not really a plotter or a pantser. I basically carefully and methodically put one foot in one leg of my pants and then hop around the room in circles trying to get the other foot in and swearing. I will have usually an end game or I will have a few milestone scenes, or I've seen them called tentpole scenes. I'll have those figured out and I'll do like a quick sketch of them just so I don't lose this event, this fight, this conversation, this pivotal moment. and I throw them on the whiteboard using Campfire Pro. And then I come up with a starting place, and I just follow my characters as they find their way from A to B to C. And sometimes I have to rearrange what C is and what D is. But so it's a bit of both. I've got it. I know where I'm going, and I know a few of the rest stops on the way, and then I just follow along, write up incidents reports, and occasionally bribe local officials. Scrounge up bail money for my characters. Some people have to sit down and do an outline from scratch. That doesn't really work for me. For some people, it works great. Other people just jump in front of their keyboard and go, and that doesn't work for me either. I've got a middle ground that I've found. Um, I would say that new writers need to really try it all and see what works for them, and not be surprised if they end up making soup.
You are not the first one to say that. That, that everybody needs to find their own process. That you could tell somebody, "This is the way you really need to do it because this is the way I have found that really works for me." But as you said, it might not work for somebody else. So, um, yeah. So, well, that's good. We keep hearing that, which means that it's good to know for people out there listening who may be thinking about writing as a career. um, well, I want to get back to something you mentioned earlier. Uh, you talked about when you decided to start writing, the things that you did, like all the YouTube videos and reading books and things like that. But you didn't mention taking any classes. Did you take any writing classes?
I think in my freshman year of college, I had one that was an English block. I tested out most of the English and math stuff,
Okay.
so it was like a block filler. Um, I think the grand finale project was to write a page.
You
So
can do that with your eyes
very
closed.
rudimentary exercises,
Uh-huh.
and then I forgot about it the next semester.
Mm. Mm. So you're pretty much self-taught, until till you've found these groups that you've gotten to be part of.
It helped me, yeah, basically organizing my daydreams on a computer file, and then learning how to express them more efficiently. One thing that I would recommend to anybody that wants to be a storyteller: words are my medium of choice. Back in the ancient times, I wanted to be an artist. I could draw. I could do pencil drawings that were approaching Norman Rockwell quality and realism if the subject caught my attention. If it didn't catch my attention, I couldn't do a stick figure. And I started dabbling with painting. I ended up taking some art classes and at Slippery Rock University in Pennsylvania. And after a semester of hanging out with some Slovak exchange students, I woke up with a terrible hangover in Bratislava and learned that I was an exchange student there. And the professors, I learned more in a semester in Bratislava than in a year and a half at an American art classes. But they would comment, your style is very illustrative. And they would encourage me to do more experimental things. And I would do that just to learn how to use the different types of paint and such.
Mhm.
But they always commented it was very illustrative. And eventually I figured out that as an artist, I'd never be more than mediocre. Because for the time it took to get an image I wanted that told a story, the juice wasn't worth the squeezing. And that's the simple fact is I hadn't discovered my medium, which is words.
Mhm.
But the basic studio drawing and painting courses taught me how to observe reality and note the different elements. The sun in the golden hour of afternoon, especially when it's hitting like the dandelion seeds, the motes, like that Ridley Scott lighting you would see in Legend. Um, Learning how to analyze and describe those things, those atmospheric details, um, really, really, really helped me because I could take something that is an evocative image, the sun behind a certain thickness of clouds. On winter day, you've got that thin haze, and the sun is just a pale silver disk, and it doesn't do anything to warm you up.
Yep.
Learning how to describe that in a way that the reader's like, oh, I know exactly what he's talking about. That was a tremendous help. That has helped me so much with atmosphere and settings, especially since I write from the first person. So I would strongly recommend that a new aspiring writer take at least a basic studio drawing class or so, because a good one will teach you how to analyze what you're seeing so you can organize what you're going to try to draw on that paper. Likewise, you're organizing the images you see, trying to figure out how to put that into words. Ramble. I warned you. I ramble.
No, that's fine. That's great. That's actually great. You said something that none of our guests have talked about before, which I think makes perfect sense the way you put it in context there. So,
A good exercise, take some favorite movie that's iconic to you because of the visual imagery. Um, Lady Hawk, The Crow, Blade
mm,
Runner, Legend,
yeah,
and find that still frame, or even The Godfather, or Netflix's Daredevil, the first season. Every frame of that video was like a frame out of one of the old Frank Miller Daredevil comics. Pause those stills in those scenes that really grab you
mhm,
and just study it and say, how can I describe this in words? That would be a great exercise, I think, for anyone who's trying to learn how to set a scene and describe it. You can do that for not just the atmosphere and the setting, but characters' posture, their expression, the hitch in the voice as they're suppressing rage or grief.
uh-huh,
There's
yeah,
a lot to learn from other methods of storytelling, other medium.
yeah, makes sense.
Pierce, it's about time for us to wrap up. So, could you tell our listeners out there where they can find out more about you and find your works?
Okay, Amazon. My Amazon page is J Kenton Pierce. That's my author name on Amazon. All of my the novel, the novella, and all the anthologies I'm in are on my Amazon page. My Substack, and I keep the Substack to writing and storytelling. A lot of my influences there. jkentonpierce.substack.com. That's the URL, and the name of my Substack is Tales from the Long Night. If you look at the archive there, you'll be able to see, um, yeah, pretty much I list things as they come out. There's also a lot of stuff just about the story verse, about various characters, and some general ramblings about my own creative process and what inspired me. So, J. Kenton Pierce at Substack.com, or just Google Tales from the Long Night.
We'll make sure we get that in the show notes.
Alright,
I
good.
appreciate it. It's all it's a new writer's career is just like a new podcast. It takes a lot of heavy lifting. It takes a heavy boost to get where you want to go, and we all help each other out. The whole rising tide thing. I'm a big fan of that.
Yes,
Us too. Us too.
absolutely. Absolutely. Well, we want to thank you so much for taking the time to join us, and we appreciate hearing about your journey and about your process and about the things that you're working on and your whole universe. It sounds awesome, and we wish you continued success with it.
Thank you very much. I do appreciate that, and I've enjoyed meeting with you. Maybe we can do this again sometime. I do some more stuff that gets your attention. You can. I'd be happy to leak more about my nerd stuff.
And we always love hearing about folks' nerd stuff.
Yeah, we do.
That's what we live for here at the Halfling and the Spaceman. And we want to thank all our audience for tuning in tonight. And we hope that you've been inspired and entertained by today's guest, J Kenton Pierce.
You will all hold places of glory and honor in the new regime.
And this is the Spaceman for the Halfling and the Spaceman podcast. Over and out.